This book took about 3 years to write the first draft. It was a long writing process and also a long research process in terms of doing a lot of the research on Palestinian history and culture, and also my trip to Israel. And the editing itself, probably another full year. I started submitting this book for publication in 2009 and got about 40-ish rejections until finally in 2012 it was bought by One World, which is a UK publisher. This was more an effort, ideally to create something beautiful out of something tragic that happened in an artistic sense, and also, to create a work of activism. As to whether writers have a responsibility, I think that some writers feel they have a responsibility to entertain, and some writers feel they have a responsibility to kind of expand people's lens broader than what they normally would have in their daily lives. And I think that was more along the lines of what I felt my responsibility was in this particular political story. It's a memoir, so it already has begun to foster dialogue within the Jewish community itself in terms of trying to engage with more difficult questions and issues than I think a lot of people would like to engage with, in terms of what the Palestinian experience is really like and what might have to happen in terms of the personal reconciliation that I achieved, how that could be broadened on a national level. But also I've had discussions with Palestinians here who have contacted me wanting to dialogue on these issues. So it's something that I think has already definitely expanded discussions on a microcosmic level, but I think that that's still important. One of the reasons why I wrote this book was as a work of activism, to basically try and expand dialogue in America and expand views on Palestinians who, unfortunately, in America, in terms of the way that they're portrayed in the American media in general, and specifically in the American Jewish community, is very limited and very, I think that they're often portrayed as a caricature of evil, which is how I saw them. And this experience in terms of going to meet the family and reading and researching and understanding more of the Palestinian experience was something that I wanted others to also experience, in terms of having public opinion perhaps change and view the conflict in a different way. At the beginning of the book, the sections are split up by particular words that lost their meanings or their meanings changed. Capri pants was one of them. My wife was wearing capri pants at the time of the explosion, and her burns on her legs were, where the capri pants were missing, I guess you would say. And so throughout this process, as somebody who pays close attention to language, I often would think about how language has changed for me. And at the end of the book, the word that changed most for me was the word friend, in response to meeting with the terrorists' family, Mohammed Odeh, and thinking about whether or not I would consider them friends in terms of this reconciliation that we achieved. And I think for every writer who places an importance upon words and upon the human experience and how those words can adapt and change, I think words are always adapting and changing. For me, they always are. There was an episode recently in which I was invited to be a keynote speaker at a conference in Santa Barbara, and it was housed at a Jewish building, at a Hillel building, and the Hillel decided to bar me from being able to speak there based on my political views. And so that has been one negative consequence. The positive consequence has been there's been a lot of blowback, and there's been a lot of publicity about this particular barring me based upon my political views, which has actually expanded the conversation in ways I think the original organization which barred me didn't anticipate, but that's always what a censorship does. Other than that, there really haven't been, I've had, personal attacks and critiques, but there hasn't been any far-reaching, negative outcomes as a result of this book.